Hey there, this is Darren LaCroix, day 44. This one, we're going for more. What's the most powerful lesson you've learned in your whole life? Like, if it got down to one, what would that be? After I graduated from college, I went to 4 years of business school. You may have heard that before, but I had this dream that I was going to be an entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur during college, and I loved it. The problem was it was like a landscaping type business, and because of that, it's seasonal. So I actually had it each summer. I'd come home and work on my business, build it up. Then I had a couple of trucks, and I had like employees. It was like awesome. And then I realized, though, after college, it's a seasonal business. You can't really run that really well all year because it was driveway sealing, meaning it could only be done in the summer too. For those of you who live in the South, up north, they have cracks in the driveway, and so actually maybe get this just so they understand, Dawson. They have these cracks, and then you seal it. So when winter comes and it's an ice storm, it doesn't expand and make the crack worse. Anyway, so my big dream was I found out Subway was coming to my area, central Massachusetts, near where I live. And that was cool. It's like, ooh, I could be ahead of the curve. And a couple of my buddies worked at a Subway in Western Mass. So the movement was happening, and I thought I'd be ahead of the curve. So my big dream was I'm going to have like 100 Subway sandwich shops. And back then, there was about 5,000 Subways worldwide, 5,000, and they had a 98% success rate. So I thought it was the only way I could get a loan, being right out of college. The only way I could get a loan from a bank was to have exactly how I felt. That's the way you got to go with it. So it was the only way I could get a loan from a bank because it was a proven success system. So here I had this big dream, and so one of the first things you got to do is they send you to Subway University, where they teach you all the different things about running a store, finding the location. So I found this location. This isn't it, but it kind of represents. I found this location in Auburn that was like on the highest volume road. So if we look over here, traffic's obviously important. If you're going to have a sandwich shop, you want a lot of traffic going by you. And I actually found this location in a little strip mall that was right near my house. And so I was so pumped. The highest volume, like I did my homework, and I thought I had the perfect location. And it was a strip mall kind of like this. And anyway, I was trying to be smart about it, and so I hired my dad's friend, who was a lawyer, to look over the Subway agreement, and I paid him, even though I didn't have much money, I paid him to go over it because I thought it's a smart thing to do. And this lawyer told me, he said, well, you got to be careful because Subway can put another Subway right down the road from you, and legally they can. And okay, but they wouldn't do that to me. So I choose the location. I'm like so excited. I'm like a dream coming true. The first one of like 100. All right, so maybe 50. But anyway, so I open the shop and I realize I don't love the food business. And Subway, about a year and a half after that, opened another one right down the road from me, about 4 miles. And and there was a McDonald's right across from my sub shop, and then there was another McDonald's near the other one. So they felt if it could support 2 McDonald's, then cool, it can support 2 Subways. So I get why they did it, but it killed my business. It took all the profits right off the top, and I was doing about $5,000 a week, brought it down to about $3,500 a week. So in a 33% cost ratio, that didn't leave much room. So you may know the story. I had to get a day job to be able to not pay myself so it could keep the Subway alive. And I was working from 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. If it wasn't at Subway, I was at Bose. If it wasn't there, I was sleeping, or I was driving between the two. There was no life for me back then. But I'll tell you, out of it, I learned one of the most valuable lessons of my life. But it wasn't until years later, because I was mad. I was mad because of the high traffic volume, the landlord had told me they were there was a proposal to put a street light right in front, which would have been amazing and would have changed my business. But there was no guarantee, of course, so I just saw that positive, what could be, even though I had no control over that. So the downside is they never put the light up. And I was mad, and I was frustrated. I was mad at everybody. I was mad at the world, and I blamed the world. And it was years later that I heard Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn was a great speaker. He was Tony Robbins' mentor, and I heard him tell this story. And the story goes that Jim Rohn was in a similar situation. He was frustrated, he was mad that he wasn't getting as successful as he thought he should be. And so Jim Rohn's mentor said, Jim, why don't you make a list of all the reasons that you're not successful? So he went back home and made a list, and brought it to his mentor, handed it to his mentor. And his mentor looked over the list carefully. And as he got to the bottom, he looked up at Jim. He said, Jim, there's one problem with your list. Your name ain't on it. And when I heard that and it sunk in, I was like, wow. I was mad at Subway. They're a franchise. They know business. They're in the franchise business. And they didn't do anything wrong. They weren't doing anything to me, but as a victim, I felt like they were. I chose the location. I chose to hire a lawyer and then not listen to him. That's me. That's on me. And so the biggest lesson I ever learned was we are 100% responsible. Outside factors will affect us, but we're responsible where we are. What happens to us when we're in a relationship, we get mad at the other person? Well, do we have the confidence enough to say, well, what did I do to cause that? When we're in a situation like my business, what did I do to cause that? So you and I, when now I look at everything, marketing, business, relationships, like we are 100% responsible. There's a video that Cheryl Green had showed me about Will Smith, and Will Smith said, look, if somebody cheats on you, somebody does that to you, that it's not your fault, but it's darn well your responsibility to make sure that never happens again. And when we take responsibility, we're immediately out of the victim mode, and we get into potential and progress and possibility. But we're 100% responsible. I was blaming everybody else, and I wasn't looking in the mirror. And so I've carried that with me, and sometimes I need the reminder. But I remember when I was going for my comedy dreams, I had, here, let's move over here so we don't get run over. When I had my comedy dreams, I laid in my childhood bed, tiger bedspread and all. And it was just a crazy dream. But I had a poster up, one of those accessory posters from the old days. And on the poster, it has this guy like skiing off a cliff. And it said, if it's to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to me. Now, those days, that saying might be cliche, but the universal truth is still there. Back then, it was super cool. But the lesson is always super cool. You are responsible. I am responsible. 100% responsible where I am, the decisions I made, and the decisions I'm going to make to change my situation. So that's my biggest lesson I've ever learned. What's yours? I hope you tell your story. I hope you share your biggest lesson, because your kids are watching. Not just what you say, what you do. So tell your story, inspire by example, and please comment on this. I would love to see that. I respond to most of them, and please share this if it makes sense. See you tomorrow.